What's going on, everybody? Marcus back again here to do a quick political response video. This one is from Beau of the Fifth Column. I actually really enjoy his videos. I enjoy his perspective. I don't agree with him on 100% of the things, but he's generally somebody I agree with. And he came out with this video that I want to talk about. More specifically, he talks about the Electoral College. He brings up some things that I agree with, some things I disagree with, and some things I think that definitely should be discussed. So we'll follow along and talk about the video.
Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Beau again. So tonight we're going to talk about voting and the Electoral College. We're going to talk about it because my son asked about it. I told him a joke about John Quincy Adams, and that joke is that John Quincy Adams once approved an expedition to the center of the earth, like Jules Verne style. Go up to the Arctic, dive down, meet the people that live in the center of the earth, begin trading with them, and thus create a more prosperous United States. If you're waiting for the punchline to this joke, it's that it's true. That actually happened. This, of course, led my son to question,
I don't know if that's true or not.
how do we stop people like that from getting in the Oval Office to begin with? And the Electoral College comes up, and he says, we got to get rid of this, because right now people are winning the election, and they don't have the support of most people.
So the Electoral College, as it was originally designed, was actually supposed to be, the electors were actually supposed to be appointed by the state legislatures, and it was actually not even supposed to be a popular vote to elect these electors. The president was going to be kind of a quasi prime minister. How it was going to be elected, it was going to be the state legislatures choosing the electors, and then the Electoral College choosing the president. It was never going to be there was never going to be a popular vote. In fact, George Washington never even had a popular vote for
I
his election.
explained that if we get rid of the Electoral College, well, then presidential candidates will only campaign in major cities, and those will be the only voices that are heard.
This is absolute nonsense. It is absolute nonsense, and it is a common argument made by people on the right, for the most part, against a direct popular vote. And the reason why it's incorrect is because I'll link the video in the description. I can't remember who the YouTuber was, but essentially, and you can Google all this stuff, is that only 30% of the United States population actually lives in urban areas, and only 40% lives in what we would call metropolitan designated areas. I.e., Los Angeles city limits has 4 million people, but the Los Angeles metropolitan area has, I think, closer to 8 million people or something of that nature. But this is a common misconception that people make about getting rid of the Electoral College. Is they say, oh, well, then they'll only campaign in the major cities. Great, campaign in the major cities. You'll only get 40% of the vote, at the very least 40%. And secondly, if we're talking about democracy, and this is, kind of a sidebar, if there are 100 people in the room and they all vote on what they want to eat, and they all have to eat the same thing, if 51 people vote for In-N-Out and 49 people vote for McDonald's, everyone's eating In-N-Out. 51 people are happy, 49 people are not happy. Guess what? That's democracy. That's democracy.
Much to my dismay, my son says, well, isn't it true that people who live in major cities tend to be better educated? Like, wow, that is incredibly elitist.
I don't know if that's true, but it wouldn't shock me if it was, only because major cities tend to have a higher concentration of higher education available, and they tend to have more people working in fields such as math or science or law or medicine or things of that nature. There tends to be more of them that live in there because there are just more people living there. Like, I guarantee you, I don't know if this is a fact, but I guarantee you there are more PhDs living in Los Angeles than living in Nebraska. I can guarantee that. And I can guarantee per capita, there's more people in Los Angeles with PhDs than in Nebraska.
It's not about education, it's about participation. We wouldn't say that about any other demographic qualifier. We can't do it with geography. Yeah, it is true that the strongest argument against democracy is a 10-minute conversation with your average voter. But this is the system we've embraced in the United
States. That's true. That is so true. Talk to the average voter for 10 minutes and you'll be like, I don't know if we should allow everyone to vote. It's a very valid point. The more you talk to people who vote, the less you actually want people to vote.
States. If we're going to get rid of that, we have to get rid of a lot more of the Constitution than just how we select our president. He says that if it's about participation, we definitely have to change it, because right now, your vote only matters if you live in a swing state. Yeah, that's true.
Very true.
That's true. And that's how the debate gets framed, even by the media.
So this whole swing state thing, this is actually more of a 21st century phenomenon. Very few presidents actually spent a lot of time campaigning in the swing states that we know of currently. Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania, to a lesser extent, places like New Mexico, Colorado, Iowa. It started in 2000 when we realized one state could swing an election, and then in 2004 they started concentrating their time in places like Iowa and Ohio and Florida and Pennsylvania. So it's a 21st century phenomenon, this swing state stuff, because a lot of Democrats, even after the swing of the Southern strategy, could still take some Southern states. Yes, they were Southern boys, such as Carter and Clinton. Carter did take quite a few states in the Deep South because he's from Georgia, and Clinton did take Louisiana and Arkansas, and I think he took West Virginia too. I can't remember if he took the Carolinas or not. And even Barack Obama was even able to take North Carolina in his first election. For him to take North Carolina, that's incredible.
That's how it gets framed. Electoral college versus popular vote. Democrats tend to want to go to the popular vote because it would benefit them. Republicans want to stay with the Electoral College because it benefits them.
True. Very true.
As my good friend Dr. Zoidberg used to say, why not both? When this system was devised, the office of the President of the United States was not the most powerful office in the world.
Very true.
It didn't control the world's most powerful military. It didn't have the ability to force project anywhere on the planet in 24 hours. It wasn't the de facto leader of the world.
Very true. This is all stuff we have to think
that making it easier to get into this position is probably the wrong move.
He hit the nail on the head with that one, because the President of the United States back in 1787, when the Constitution was finalized, was not the most powerful position in the world. So now that it is, using a system that was devised that long ago under completely different circumstances just doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't do that with the things you're doing today. Would you wash your clothes the same way you were washing your clothes 200 years ago? Probably not.
We should probably be making it harder. If we're going to change it, let's make it more difficult. You have to get the Electoral College and the popular vote. You have to get both. I would take it a step further and say you have to get 2/3 of the popular vote. Right now, candidates win elections by dividing the country, by playing one side against the other, getting people to kick down. That's how they win. You want to sit in the most powerful chair in the world? Prove yourself out on the campaign trail. Show us that you can unite people.
It's a great point. I don't know how feasible it would be to actually get 2/3 of the vote, or always getting the Electoral College and the popular vote. I don't know how feasible it would be to devise that system, but it's definitely something something to ponder and something to discuss. Making it harder, I definitely think is probably a good idea. I think the Electoral College makes it easier. In fact, I think it was CDP Grey that came out with a video that stated that in a hypothetical scenario, you only needed 22 million votes to become president of the United States. If you were to take the smallest states, that would get you the Electoral College victory. That's scary to think about, that only 22 million people in a land with 300 million people could elect the most powerful person in the world. It's crazy to think about, but right now it's possible.
I would take it a step further and introduce ranked choice voting as well.
Another great point.
Right now, there's a whole bunch of people who are scared to vote for a person who better represents them because they're not a part of a major party.
Very
and if
true.
you vote for Jill Stein, well, that's really a vote for that person you truly don't like.
Very true.
Shouldn't be that way.
Very true.
Introduce ranked choice voting and make it more difficult to get into that office. We've had enough clowns stumble into that office, and they've caused a lot of damage along the way. You want to make America great? Let's set the standards higher, not lower. I'm not certain of how to fix this problem, but the one thing I am sure about is that the answer is not making it easier to sit in the most powerful office in the world. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good night.
I actually really enjoyed this video. It gave me a lot to think about, and my closing thoughts would be, I don't know if, I think ranked choice voting is a step in the right direction, but I've actually had some thoughts, and this is just a thought. It's not my ironclad position, but I think maybe we should experiment with a parliamentary style election for our chief executive like they do in most European countries, where the legislature just elects the president like they do the prime minister. And since we have a bicameral legislation, it would have to be the House of Representatives would vote for the president. You would have a nomination. Two candidates, one candidate per party gets nominated by the people, and the House of Representatives votes them in, and then the Senate confirms it. Now, obviously, the Senate tends to be more equally balanced. At times there's a majority, and at times there's sometimes even a supermajority at times, but for the most part it's pretty well balanced. So the candidate that would have to get to the House and the Senate would have to be someone that both parties tend to would have to live with, so to speak. It's just a thought, but I think that overall there were some good points made in this video. I think my biggest objection to this video is his notion that the whole fake news notion that if it was just a direct popular vote, that only the person will only have to campaign in major cities. That's just absolute nonsense. But anyways, just my thoughts on this video. Really enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, like, comment, and subscribe.